If you pay any attention to the news, you might be met with a wide range of reports regarding the economy. Connecticut has just reached new private sector employment peak in July, according to the CT News Junkie, but diversity and pay gaps remain in government jobs, according to the CT Mirror. There are thousands of open jobs available in the state, and homelessness is on the rise. This isn't a tale of two cities, or states, it's the reality of workforce development in 2024. First Selectman Michael Frieda of North Haven and Matt Hart, Executive Director of the Capital Region Council of Governments, join us today to talk about workforce development, municipal careers, and why this matters for the future of Connecticut. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state and local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or our member municipal leaders. Mike, Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Good to have you here as always. So as public servants, you're both familiar faces to us on the show and to many in the public. Matt, you were the town manager for both Mansfield and West Hartford before you took on the role of executive director for the Capital Region Council of Governments.
Yes.
And many listeners will be familiar with First Selectman Michael Frieda from neighboring North Haven, certainly. The topic that we want to talk about today is workforce development and what that means for municipalities. But first, I want to ask each of you why you sought the roles you did. What was enticing about public service? Mike?
Well, I'm a good example, Matt, of how life takes different twists and turns. I was a corporate CEO. I started right at the beginning of my company, right at the bottom. And over an 18-year period, right after college, I worked my way up to president, chief executive officer of what was then a billion-dollar company, and through a series of also mergers and acquisitions. So back then, one of my predecessors had heard a lot about me because I lived in town, even though my offices were up in the Boston area. And he said to me, like to meet with me. I came in here at town hall and he said, we really would like to bring in people from the private sector, either to sit on the Board of Education or to sit on the Board of Finance. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know much about the Board of Ed, so I chose the Board of Finance because I oversaw the CFOs in my companies. Mm-hmm. Sat on there for about a year. There was an election. My predecessor, one of them, was beaten. He was out of office. And then the party came to me and asked me if I'd like to sit as the minority member on the Board of Selectmen. I almost didn't do it, but I did do it. Yeah. But then I realized that people were starting to recognize me. I was writing columns. I was on TV shows locally. 2 years later, the unexpected happened. They asked me if I would consider running for office.
Yeah.
So keep in mind now, it went from like a $700,000 a year job to running for an $89,000 a year job.
So you didn't do it for the money?
I didn't do it for the money, but I almost didn't do it. Yeah. And I had a very profound thing happen. Saturday before I had to give my final answer, the answer was going to be no.
Yeah.
But I was in a gas station. I don't know why I went to that gas station. I needed gas, but it was a gas station I've never been to before. I was pumping my gas and a crowd came around me from the store, people pumping gas. Hey, Mr. Frieda, we think North Haven needs you. Would you consider it?
Yeah.
And then and there, I said, maybe I was put in this gas station for a certain reason.
Yeah.
I resigned from the company, knocked on over 5,000 doors that summer, went everywhere, won that election in a landslide. And here I am 15 years later, 8 terms later.
So something about it must appeal because you've stuck with it all these years now.
Well, I think as Matt knows, unlike my other career, we were responsible for satisfying shareholders, building market share, satisfying clients, keeping customers happy, making money for the shareholders. But this career has allowed me to do something I didn't realize, and it's a very important thing for me. You can make an impact on people's lives in this career, personally and aggregately. And I can tell you, as Matt can, I'm sure, hundreds and hundreds of stories of people whom we've helped that we've made an impact on their lives. And that's why I like this job.
That's great. Matt, what drew you into public service?
Well, really it was an internship in local government that got me started. But before I go there, I really want to thank and acknowledge Mike. I'm so glad, you left the private sector for local government here in Connecticut. Mike, you've done a fabulous job representing your community for several years now, and you're a wonderful advocate for local government in our state.
Thank you.
So I was in graduate school. I was a little bit of an older student because I served in the Army and an internship came up with the town of Windsor. And
Okay.
I had a chance to work with a fabulous town manager. His name is Albert Ilg, now retired, living in West Hartford. But that internship, it was just fascinating for me
Hmm.
because as Mike talked about, it's really all about working a community, a better place to live in,
Hmm.
to work in, to play in, to learn in. And I decided, at that point in time, I was going to make local government my career. So
Yeah.
I did 27 years working with three towns, Windsor, Mansfield, and West Hartford. I was
Hmm.
the town manager, as you said, in Mansfield and in West Hartford. And then in 2022, this opportunity became available at the Capital Region. I had long had an interest in regional issues and in policy issues. And I just saw this as a tremendous opportunity to help serve 38 municipalities, a residential population of almost a million people. So it's been a great 2.5 years, and I get to work with my local government colleagues each and every day.
That's awesome. Connecticut, like so many other states, has a workforce development issue. And you could even say a disconnect of people out of work and job openings. What is workforce development? What does it mean to you, Mike?
Well, yeah, it means an awful lot on a variety of different levels. Yeah, many people don't realize that I'm also chairman of the Greater New Haven Workforce Alliance Municipal Board. So I spent a lot of time on this issue.
Mhm.
And I think it's very important as it relates even to something else I'm doing right now, sitting on the CCM 119,000K Commission for Disenfranchised and Disconnected Youth. What we see is the fact that working, getting jobs,
Mhm.
is part of connecting people, particularly in this case, youth. So if they don't have the structure and they don't have the sustaining of that structure and they're not making money
Mhm.
and they're unemployed, that's one of the large reasons why youth is disconnected right now. So
Mhm.
I see the Workforce Alliance. I see this next meeting we have in New London Tuesday night. We're focusing in on Workforce Alliance and workforce connections and identifying sectors where
Mhm.
there are opportunities. I think that is very key to perpetuating a community and perpetuating a society.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about at those 119K meetings, the fact that we have all these 119,000 disconnected youth, and we have, on the other hand, these thousands of jobs that are waiting and open. And, trying to figure out how to make those work together is so important. Matt, what does workforce development mean to you?
Literally, quite literally, it means developing the workforce for the future, for tomorrow.
Mm.
And our organization, Capital Region, has long been involved in supporting workforce development in the private sector and in the nonprofit sector. Like Mike, I'm a board member for our local workforce development agency, Capital Workforce Partners. We have a great relationship with them. More recently, in my time here, over the last couple of years, we've been focused on workforce development for the public sector, in
Hmm.
particular, local government, municipal government, because I think it's often overlooked. Like the private sector, like state government, we are also um, experiencing the silver tsunami, where
Yeah.
we've got thousands of people retiring, and many of our towns are struggling to recruit and retain talented workers. So I think as a state and at the regional and local level, we need to invest more time and resources into the local government workforce in addition to those other sectors.
Yeah. And I think invest is an important word there. It's not necessarily something we're gonna see it right now, but that investment will pay in the future.
Yes.
So I'd just like to tie in. I think Matt makes an excellent point here. There's at least three areas in local government that we're having a very difficult time attracting people:
Yeah.
building officials, assessors, and engineers. And when I speak at the local colleges here, I often remind the students that these are three great careers potentially that if you wanted to pursue, particularly engineering, a lot of engineers at the municipal level are aging out and we can't find people. So Matt really makes an excellent point here. It's so true.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a good reminder that, some of these municipal jobs that are open are really good jobs that, require college degrees and a lot of expertise. So there's a lot of different opportunities within municipal government to work in whatever field you might be in.
Mm.
It's been said to the point of exhaustion now, but the last 25 years are drastically different than the previous 25 years. In 1974, a computer job is one where you presumably worked on a computer like you'd work on a car, or you had an advanced degree. But today, a computer job is logging on and sending emails all day. How has this affected workforce development? Matt?
Well, I think in a couple of different ways. Today's workforce, at least based on national statistics, is
Hmm.
transient, right?
Yeah.
We no longer have someone joining an employer with the expectation that they're going to spend a career there,
Hmm.
a career there. So as an employer, as employers, we need to be prepared for that as well. We need to
Hmm.
be prepared for more transition. We've got to give constant thought to development and how are we going to grow and develop employees to assume greater responsibility, within our respective organizations.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, I think work is in many ways more dynamic and exciting.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are very, very concerned about artificial intelligence and AI and how that's going to impact the workforce overall. But then there are many others, myself in this camp, who are excited about the possibilities.
Hmm.
And I think that is going to be a significant part of the future for workforce development as well. And workers of the future are going to have the opportunity increasingly to leverage that exciting technology, not just in the private sector, but also in the nonprofit world and in the public sector.
That's very cool. Since you've been thinking about it, and I haven't thought about it that much, what's one example of something that AI could possibly do in local government?
Well, one example I would highlight, and I concur with Mike's point, building code officials, building inspectors, and code enforcement
Hmm.
excuse me, some of the most challenging occupations to recruit for right now.
Hmm.
It's essentially a bidding war. So to what extent can we develop and leverage AI to supplement the code enforcement workforce?
Mm.
It's an interesting approach that developed during the course of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Necessity is the mother of invention, right? Where
Hmm.
we started to see towns and building inspectors conduct inspections in a virtual manner.
Hmm.
So the contractor would utilize, their iPhone or whatever technology they had and the building inspector would log in from their computer in town hall or home or wherever they were, and the contractor would take them around the property
Mm.
subject to inspection. So that's just an example of how we leverage some existing technology.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be able to augment it to a significant degree in the future. And personally, I find it very exciting.
Yeah. Mike, you mentioned earlier that you were doing some work with the nonprofit Workforce Alliance. Could you tell us some more about that?
Well, it's an organization all across Connecticut. I believe there's 5 different chapters.
Hmm.
I happen to be involved with the Greater New Haven Workforce Alliance. So what it does, what the entity does is it brings people in, even the most basic people without any basic skills, and
Hmm.
helps train them at the fundamental level.
Okay.
To something simple as to develop a resume. It also offers training courses in terms of how to interview, what jobs are available, and it identifies sectors. And the sectors could be hospitality, could be banking, could be retail, could be manufacturing. So it prioritizes sectors that are hot, so to speak, in
Yeah.
terms of careers that are available. So it really is a basic service that helps train people to be much more effective in trying to secure a position.
So it seems like every other week there's a news story about a new business opening up in North Haven. Obviously, Mike, you and your town are doing a great job on economic development. Does that help with workforce development?
Yes. When we bring in a new store or a a new retailer, a new restaurant, on that side,
Mhm.
whether it's retail or hospitality, it opens up a lot of different jobs.
Yeah.
Many times we bring in HVAC contractors as an example, or plumbing contractors.
Mhm.
Those might be existing companies who are moving in. They want to expand from one area to another.
Yeah.
To a large extent, it does open up workforce opportunities. But with it, I'm finding, and I know Matt, when he was town manager, I'm sure would agree with this, that it's a delicate balancing act, because the more businesses that I say I, because I'm directly involved with it, but the more businesses the town brings in with me leading the charge, there's more traffic.
Mhm.
And what we see in our communities is people don't like the traffic congestion, and I certainly understand that.
Yeah.
And even on social media this weekend, I'm responding back and forth with some of our residents who are complaining perhaps about too much traffic in certain areas,
Yeah.
largely because we've brought in businesses like At Home. It's a 60 to 80,000 square foot retailer. There's only three in the
Yeah.
state. Home Goods, we brought that in. We
Yeah.
filled 100,000 square feet of retail space, which generates more traffic. And it's a tough balancing act I'm finding these days.
Yeah. I can imagine in Connecticut, we have our small towns that we love and the character of it, and balancing that out with continued development and the necessity of economic development, I imagine is a tough call sometimes.
And one last point, about 4 years ago, I spent 2 years prior to that trying to bring Amazon here. We have a
Mhm.
1.2 million square foot distribution facility
Yeah.
with 5,500 new jobs here in North Haven. And they're the largest, not only employer, but also the largest taxpayer in town.
Yeah.
But it's generated a significant amount of traffic on Route 5.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. As noted in a Hartford Current article, there's 90,000 job openings in the state. Matt, what do you make of that statistic?
Yeah, I think it certainly causes you to sit back and think, what are we missing here? What are we missing here? I think to some extent it's awareness, the applicant or the potential labor pool,
Mhm.
are they really aware of the range of positions available? I think that's a factor, awareness. I think another factor though is job readiness.
Mhm.
Job readiness, how many folks are really equipped to step into a job. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that later on
Definitely.
today in terms of how we develop people so that they are job ready. And then third, maybe positions that traditionally were attractive to people are less so now, and
Mhm.
I think there's a stigma around certain occupations, whether it's manufacturing or certain trades jobs
Mhm.
or certain laboring positions. I mean, working conditions across the board have improved dramatically.
Yeah.
I grew up in my father's tool and die shop. I mean,
Mhm.
working in a factory today it's a far different and more pleasant environment than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah. Matt, you're also working on this issue through ACIR. Our CCM listeners might not know what that means. Could you tell us a little bit about what ACIR is and what your subcommittee is looking into?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So ACIR, the Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, it's a 25-member commission,
Hmm.
and it has representatives from the governor, General Assembly, state agencies. There are some members at large. The council of governments have a number of seats as well. Our current chair is John Filchak, the recently retired executive director from the Northeastern Connecticut Council of Governments. And ACIR has been in place for about 50 years.
Hmm.
And really, its focus is how to improve that relationship from a systems perspective between the state and local government.
Hmm.
And we'll do a variety of things, conduct various studies, projects, propose legislation. A big focus over the last several years has been how do we promote shared services between towns and school districts so that we can capture an economy of scale, provide services more efficiently and effectively, and even improve services in many respects. So for the current year, we established 2 work groups. And one work group is looking at the issue of workforce development for local government. And Ron Thomas, your colleague at CCM, CCM's deputy director, and I are serving as the 2 co-chairs. We've got roughly 10 members right now. We're staffed by Christine Goupil from OPM. She's doing a fabulous job. And our charge is to look at workforce development needs in local government here in Connecticut. So first, we've got to collect the data. What are the positions that we think where the need is most acute? We're also going to look at best practices with respect to recruitment and retention. Who's doing a good job here in Connecticut or nationally? And then we're going to develop a set of proposals to present to the full commission for the state legislature to consider and other policymakers. And then as part of that, we're going to look at additional opportunities to promote that shared services concept I talked about a few minutes ago. How can we better encourage towns and school districts to share services so that they can save taxpayer dollars, but also in many ways improve the level of services that they're able to provide, especially in our smaller communities.
Mike, what can be done to make working for a municipality more appealing to individuals?
I think we have to do a better job on our side in promoting what we do, marketing ourselves as a great career, and making connections directly with people. And one of the things that I often wonder is, in today's environment, the people I talk to who are seeking work are frustrated because it's not as easy as it was years ago. As an example, when I came out of college, I would get face-to-face interviews. And I wouldn't have to go through Indeed and some of these work sites and then run the risk of being frustrated with no response back in some cases. And I think that as I think back then, there was not an interview that I didn't get a job offer. So the personal, I think, face-to-face is very important. And perhaps for us, in addition to what CCM does for us in marketing these positions, in addition to Indeed and some of these work sites we use, perhaps we can get a competitive advantage by also implementing a more face-to-face type of interview process in conjunction with everything else we do. And that could mean a tour of our different buildings, talking to some of the people who are working here currently. I think we, at least North Haven, has to do a better job at marketing ourselves in a more face-to-face personal fashion. And I think if we can do that, I think that we can highly illustrate how great these careers can be in municipal government.
Yeah, I think you're right. The marketing is so important because, we talked before about the private sector, how people don't tend to stay with one company, from starting to retirement anymore. But just from working at TCM with all these towns, I see the longevity of so many municipal employees who stay for 20, 30, 40 years and do spend a career working for their local town because they are good jobs. And, the marketing is what's necessary to really spread the word about these. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I concur with all the points Mike made, certainly. I do think increasingly, though, we've got to borrow from the private sector, and we have to pay people to learn. So let me elaborate on that. Most of our positions, even our entry-level positions, will often require a couple of years experience. So people may not have that. So I think we've got to find a way to introduce trainee programs at the local government level. So we've been doing it for decades in public safety. We're willing to put 2 years into a new police officer, send them to the academy. Same thing with a career firefighter. We're willing to put 2 years into that individual without knowing for sure whether it's going to work out. More times than not, it does. I think increasingly we've got to look to utilize that model for other municipal occupations, such as building code inspectors, tax assessors, any number of those positions where it's really difficult to recruit and retain people. Now, that's going to come at a cost, right? That's going to come at a cost at a time in which local governments, at least here in Connecticut, there's a lot of pressure on municipal budgets. So we're going to have to find those resources, hoping that state government and federal government and even private foundations can be partners in that work.
Yeah. I mean, it always sounds like you're calling back to the old like apprentice system and things
Exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Things that were around for a very long time until quite recently. Mike?
Matt really just made a great point and reminded me of something that I neglected to say. That for the past 14 years, 15 years that I've been in office, we have worked closely, North Haven and the town of Hamden, and worked closely with Quinnipiac University on an internship program. Now, in this case, in this internship program, Quinnipiac comes to us, myself and the mayor of Hamden, and they offer these these college students who are entering their senior year during the summer for, let's say, 12 weeks. They pay for them to be here. We put them in various departments. They work with our people, whether it be our engineers here in my office, our staff, economic development. And I think that we've hired 3 people in 15 years who came in, executive assistants. One was an engineer. He was studying engineering. He works closely with our engineer. He loved it. And we were able to attract people that way through this paid internship program. And that's another, I think, thing that we could pursue. We're going to continue to do it with Quinnipiac University, but maybe municipalities partnering with colleges to see if that can be replicated.
Yeah, there's colleges all around the state, and they could be partnering up with their local communities, certainly. CCM recently rebranded our jobs board to call it the Municipal Career Center, where we're going to post jobs regularly, have resources, and we've got some videos featuring municipal employees across the state. What else can municipalities, the state, be doing to help? Matt?
Yeah, I think of a few things. And, CCM has been a fabulous partner. A related initiative, I've been working with George Raphael and Max Friedman at CCM over the past year and a half, approaching 2 years now, leading a municipal workforce development group. It's a more informal group comprised primarily of HR directors from around the state. And, I think we've had a number of really good conversations and we're making some progress. So what more do municipalities need to do? I'll mention a couple of things. Number one, what I talked about a couple minutes ago, we've got to find a way to pay people to learn. We've got to develop increasingly trainee programs for those occupations that are the most challenging to fill. Secondly, I think we've got to modernize our recruitment methods a little bit. We've made some improvements, but our processes are still rather formal. They can take a long period of time. We've got to move things along, where people can submit a standard application, resume, get interviewed in a timely manner. So, I think there's certainly work left to do in that arena. Third is continuing to look at work-life balance issues, And I think some towns are doing a really neat job with this, and it's helping them out from a recruitment and retention perspective. What are some examples? The 4-day work week is an example. A number of towns have converted to that. In my region alone, Plainville, Ellington, Mansfield, people are still doing their 35 plus hours a week in a 4-day schedule, but having that additional day is a real attraction. Hybrid work is another example for those occupations that are well suited for it, such as knowledge workers who actually in many ways can be more productive working remotely, where they can really focus on a task. Hybrid doesn't work for all occupations, but for many it does. And the last thing I would highlight is I think, and there's an equity component to this. I think we've got to look at additional labor pools, including those where we traditionally have not made significant inroads in local government. And the one that I will mention is the justice involved or second chance population.
Hmm.
Those are people who've been previously incarcerated, maybe for a lower level offense. They've done their time, they paid their debts to society, they've taken steps to improve themselves. I think that's a labor pool that increasingly we need to look at.
Yeah.
And there's been such a stigma around that. And I think we've got to get beyond it. So those are all examples of things we're going to be looking at. Our ACIR work group that I mentioned previously that Ron and I co-chair.
Yeah. Selectman Frieda, we know you're on the 119K commission panel, which means there's 119,000 at-risk or disconnected youth in this state. We also talked about how there's 90,000 or so job openings. How do we make these numbers line up?
It's going to be filed, I think, in our report by October, but I'd like to give you a specific example of what I personally am trying to accomplish, and it ties into something Matt just said.
Mhm.
So we're going to New London on Tuesday night, and it's strictly workforce, as I mentioned.
Mhm.
I'm bringing someone there to testify who works for the Veolia water company, wastewater management. They're a world company. They probably have about 14 or 15 municipalities that they do business with.
Mhm.
So there's going to be testimony. I'm going to be teeing it up about how important they could be in the process, because there is one of their operational managers who was part of the community, part of being incarcerated, part of trying to rebuild his life back, as Matt was just suggesting, who now, through an apprentice program, which ties also in with what Matt was speaking about earlier, a paid apprentice program, worked through the ranks at Veolia and became an operating manager slash engineer. So it's these type of companies,
Mhm.
so important to offer those apprenticeships to train that can have a positive outcome in someone's life. So what I'm trying to personally do is make connections through the 119,000K commission, lining up employers who are looking to try to connect with people looking for jobs, including those who came out of incarceration. I think
Yeah.
Matt made a great point there, and it's exactly what we're going to be doing on Tuesday night.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. We've been talking for a little bit about workforce development, municipal careers, and why they're important. And we look at how they contribute to the taxes right now and all that kind of stuff. But why is workforce development so crucial for the future of Connecticut? Matt?
Well, I think every state, local government, I mean, nationally, we need a talented workforce in order to survive and to thrive right? I mean, that's it's really the strength of our workforce. Connecticut's a small state, but throughout our history, we've been a leader. We've been a leader in manufacturing, healthcare, insurance, higher education, so many things. And that's all dependent upon having a highly trained workforce.
Yeah.
So we still have that. Fortunately, we still have that. We want to keep people here in our state, and we've got to also look at those careers that don't necessarily require a college degree.
Mhm.
And there are many in local government. Don't necessarily require a college degree, but a certain level of certifications and training that someone can acquire over time. So I think in order to remain a great place to live, to be competitive on a national scale, our state, our regions, our local governments need to invest in developing the workforce for tomorrow across all sectors, private sector, the nonprofit sector, and the public sector, state and local government.
I would add to all those great points that Matt just mentioned. Those are the fundamental, very important points. I think another fundamental responsibility we have is to try to make this connection and have jobs that are being connected with people, just for the basic responsibility of people being able to support their own families, they can buy homes, take a mortgage out if they have a job, put their children through school, perhaps help their children with college. That helps also sustain and perpetuate our respective communities.
Yeah.
When we have individual families who are working, earning money to support their family, pay taxes, buy homes, and reinvest back in their own families. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I would agree. Mike, are there opportunities to combine all these efforts? We talk about all these different things going on into one big product, or is there an efficiency to tackling little parts at a time?
That's a great question. I learned a lot sitting on this commission
Mm,
since March. There's so much fragmentation out there.
yeah.
And we have to find a way to reweave the fragmented fabric of our communities to make these connections.
Mhm.
When we look at nonprofits out there, so many different nonprofits who come to us, they have the basic services to help people, even in workforce, but they
Mhm.
need funding. Most recently, I introduced the YMCA group to Andrew Ferguson from the Dalio Foundation and the Boston Consulting Group. And the YMCA has these internships. They train people, they hire people,
Mm,
whether it be in high school and college. As an example, lifeguards. There's a need for lifeguards, just getting someone in the system, making money, having a job. In this example, the YMCA could be very, very important. So I guess the bottom line on what I'm saying is there's a lot of great fragments, but
mm,
we have to weave them together to create even a more dynamic ability to create a positive outcome.
yeah. Matt, you already, as a cog, work on a sort of regional basis. Do you see yourselves having a role in kind of bringing these stakeholders together, all these
Oh,
different programs?
very much so, very much so. And I think Mike made some excellent points. Like he said, I think we've got to try to do both. There are certain things that we can take on more comprehensively, such as streamlining and making the hiring process more modern, more contemporary. But then secondly, there's a benefit in focusing on a particular occupation at a time, like building
Mm,
inspection, like tax assessment, et cetera, and trying to work through some of the structural issues at the state and local level to make it easier for people to get in the field and get the training and certifications they need. And COGS, one of the key reasons why we exist is to work on the issues that are a little bit too big and too broad for any one municipality
mhm.
to handle on their own. So we're able to bring together the strength of a region and devote some time and attention to focus on those things. I like to say that at the COG, let's take a big policy issue, whether it's workforce development, housing, et cetera. We convene the conversation.
Mhm.
We convene the conversation, and then ideally, we're the catalyst for developing the solution.
So, kind of a final question for both of you. How do you feel about the future of Connecticut? Are you feeling optimistic, Mike?
Well, I'm optimistic by nature, and I always look on the bright side. I am focused on creating positive outcomes. And,
Hmm.
I've been an athlete all of my life, and, I'm in 3 different baseball Hall of Fames, and baseball taught me a very valuable lesson, and that is how to deal with failure. And
Hmm.
I'll continue this baseball metaphor. In baseball, for every 10 at bats, you can make 7 outs and
Hmm.
perhaps still reach the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But it's easy to get discouraged in life or in
Hmm.
government or in business. So I applied my baseball career and experiences to this career. Never give up an at bat. I might be 0 for 2 in a game trying to get economic development passed here in town, but I may have 2 or 3 more at bats. And
Yeah.
I tell a lot of people who understand sports, just because you're 0 for 2 and you failed, you still have a couple more at bats in this game, this
Yeah.
daily game. You could go 2 for 4. Don't give up an at bat by getting discouraged.
Yeah.
So I am very optimistic, and I'm going to share something with both you fine gentlemen personally. I do have an Achilles heel. It's negativity and toxicity. It's like kryptonite to Superman. I have a very difficult time with it. So I'm
Yeah.
always positive and try to be tremendously upbeat. Each of us represent a brand.
Yeah.
Do we want ourselves as a positive, upbeat brand, or do we want to portray ourselves as a negative brand?
Yeah.
Because that'll have an adverse effect on people. We're cheerleaders, we're CEOs of our municipalities. We have to portray ourselves in a positive fashion.
Mm. Matt?
I'm an optimist as well. I think if you're not, it's hard to be successful in life. But in terms of let me loosely use the word crisis with respect to workforce development in the
Hmm.
public sector here in Connecticut. I think there are some silver linings. There's
Hmm.
some silver linings. As I said before, necessity is the mother of invention, right? And I think that's going to play out here as well, and already will. I think this is going to force us to modernize our recruitment processes. I think it's going to force us to take a look at some of the barriers to recruitment, retention, training, how state licensure works, how certain certifications are awarded, et cetera. And we're going to be able to make some improvements there. From an equity perspective, I think we're going to be able to bring in people into certain local government professions
Hmm.
that historically have either been marginalized or just did not view that as a career option for them, whether it's gender-based, race-based, ethnicity, you name it. I think we're going to have an opportunity to diversify the municipal workforce of the future of tomorrow, and I'm excited about that.
Very cool. Well, Mike, Matt, thank you so much for speaking with us today on the Municipal Voice. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. It's been great. And Mike, it's been great to be on with you.
Could I give my friend and colleague Matt a shout out here?
Do it.
From the moment I first met him, was probably at a CCM meeting, his first town manager job. He reminded me of a CEO of a corporation that I had worked with
Yeah.
in the past. He had the leadership, the knowledge, the strategic management, the operational management. And I said to myself, this guy's going places. And I'm very proud of him, very proud of you, Matt. And I'm very proud of your position now leading that Council of Governments. You've done great work. Government needs more people like Matt Hart in government.
Here,
Oh,
here.
thank you so much, Mike, and the feeling's mutual.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thanks to you both.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.